Hello and welcome back. I'm so glad you're sticking with this and great to see you in session 3. Hopefully you're doing well with your homework. You found the right brain deep breathing to make a huge difference and that your imagination is getting engaged. And some of you may have not used your imagination in a long time. So it may take some practice, but when you get this, it's really going to make a difference in how you're feeling. And hopefully you're able to expose yourself to a little bit of anxiety and just float with those and not do the Chinese finger trap or swatting at the bee, and just notice like, hey, this isn't going to hurt me, not going to kill me, and that you are seeing that making a huge difference in just those little changes in your thoughts. And today we're going to do my favorite of all the sessions, the better but believable thoughts. And so I'm going to teach you something that if you can grasp a hold of and really start to use this in your thinking and break some old habits, it's definitely going to change your life. But first, we're going to introduce a new skill, and it brings in the concept of mindfulness. Now, mindfulness is something that is designed to bring you into the present. So if you have negative emotions, if you feel guilty, if you feel angry, it's usually about something in the past. If you feel anxious or worried, it's usually about something in the future. So mindfulness is to kind of get you out of dwelling on the past. It's to get you out of worrying about the future, and it brings you into the present moment.
Hello, welcome back. I hope you have benefited from the information on panic attacks and being able to float and accept and just go with some of these emotions, knowing that they can't hurt you, they can't kill you, and just kind of not allowing them to bother you anymore, and stop swatting at that bee. But this time we want to talk about a technique called grounding. And this is a great way when you walk into a place where you're uncomfortable, maybe you don't like to be around a lot of people and you find yourself surrounded by a lot of people, just in new situations. I told you the first week I was on the Penn and Teller show, and, walking out onto that stage, although I've done hundreds of stages in my life, it was just a different experience, and all these big cameras, right in my face. And, before we started rolling, this is a technique I used that just calmed me down pretty quickly. And so what it does is I'll explain it, and then I'll explain the theory behind it or why this works, is you're engaging your 5 senses, right? So you can write this down, that you're going to use 5 things that you can see. And it's going to be 4 things that you can touch and what they feel like. Then there's 3 things that you can hear, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. And each time you do this, again, it's going to be silently, but just for demonstration purposes, I'll do it out loud. So I'm going to start out with 5 things I can see. So I'm going to look around and just things that I notice. I see a tape measure. I see a deck of cards. I see a Rubik's Cube. I see sunglasses, and I see duct tape. I'm going to move on to 4 things I could touch and what they would feel like. I could touch my desk, it would be smooth. I could touch a pillow on the floor, it would be soft. I could touch the carpet, it would feel rough. And I could touch my lamp and it would feel hot. As I'm going through that, I'm also imagining, not just saying what it would feel like, but imagining what that feel is. 3 things that I can hear. I can hear the TV on downstairs. I can hear my computer running. And I can hear a lawnmower outside. And for sure, in this exercise, you don't have to rush through it. So, if it takes you 30 seconds to hear 3 things, that's okay. That's a good thing. So two things that I smell. I smell mint because I just had a peppermint not long ago. As I get my hands closer, I can smell the soap. And then one thing I taste is still the peppermint from earlier. All right, so what I just did, I engaged all 5 of my senses. And, you know, this is one of the mindfulness techniques, which is pretty big for dialectical behavior therapy and just really helping to change the chemicals in your brain. And what it's doing, if you have a negative emotion, you're either focused on the past or you're focused on the future, right? So if you're angry or you feel guilty, it's based on something in the past. If you're nervous, if you're anxious, it's about something that may or may not happen in the future. So mindfulness and this grounding brings you into the present. It makes you notice what's going on around you right now. So in that moment, as you're thinking of those things and going through the 5 senses, it prevents you from staying in the past, and it prevents you from worrying about the future. And so it just kind of brings you in that present moment and, you know, just gets you out of some of those negative emotions. So give it a shot, and we'll talk more next week.
So hopefully you'll be able to use that skill. And when you find yourself, you know, sitting in the doctor's office in the waiting room when you're nervous or anxiety's creeping in, like I said, just that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique can get you out of that worry, out of the stuff from the past, and hopefully will make a difference for you. So today we're doing what's called Better But Believable Thoughts. And so we'll start the introduction here. So point number 1, negative thoughts lead to anxiety and fear. So the sub point there, you are not your thoughts. So, you know, if you think you're dumb, if you think you're ugly, if you think you're whatever it may be, that is not who you are. Those are just your thoughts. You always have to remind yourself over and over again, these are just thoughts. These are just thoughts. But your thoughts can cause you to act as though they were true. So, you know, if you think you're a loser, you probably walk around acting as though you are one, even though you're not really a loser. So the next point there, the Bible is filled with verses about our thinking. So there's well over 100 different verses that talks about our minds, our thoughts, and how they impact our lives. You know, 2 Corinthians tells us to take every thought captive. Philippians says anything that's true, noble, right, pure, that we're to think about those things. Colossians tells us to set our minds on the things above. Romans 12 tells us to be transformed by the renewing of our minds. So God, when he designed this, definitely knew how much of an impact our thoughts and our minds are going to have on our lives. And I've never done it, but I think it would be pretty cool. You could probably go through all 66 books of the Bible and probably find at least one verse in every book that in some way talks about how we're thinking, our minds, our thoughts, and how they impact our lives. But number 2, negative thinking can become a bad habit, or, you know, negative thinking can become a habit. So right now research shows, and I went very conservative, there's different research projects out there on our thinking and thoughts, but on the conservative end, we have 5,000 to 10,000 thoughts a day. Others had upwards of 50,000 different thoughts, you know, what we're going to wear, what we're going to eat, whether or not we're going to go to work, whether or not we're going to call somebody on the phone, those sort of things. And then they identify and label for the average Americans these thoughts as 70% could in some way be considered negative. You know, I don't really want to go to work today. You know, I don't got anything good in the refrigerator to eat. I don't really want to talk to this person. So those sort of thoughts that are going on all day long, every day. And so part of it would say, you know, if we're having 3,500 to 7,000 negative thoughts every single day, you know, if we could take a little tape recorder and record those thoughts and play it back, for a lot of us, it would be like, no wonder you feel this way. And no wonder you're anxious. No wonder you're depressed, when these are the messages that's constantly going through your mind on every single day. All right. So the second part, research shows all habits have the ability to be broken. Definitely not going to be easy. Again, if you're doing this 7,000 times a day to yourself, you've been doing it for the last 35 years, it's a long running habit, but it can be broken. And you just got to be willing to do the work that it takes. All right. So negative thinking shows up in various ways. So I'll kind of let you look through those: the all or nothing thinking, negative predictions, negative filtering, mind reading, the shoulds. We'll be doing a whole session on the shoulds and the things that you constantly tell yourself that you should do. Overthinking, the fear of failure. The two that I probably find the most common people I work with, the negative filtering, that was huge for myself. I could do a magic show, or I could do a presentation or something, and line of 30 people, 29 of them very positive, loved it, it was great, and one person gives me a criticism, all I could focus on was that one criticism, and filtering out all the positive stuff and only focusing on the negative. And definitely, like, overthinking tends to be a big one, and overanalyzing everything to the point where it makes us feel more anxious and more stressed. So you can see some examples of negative self-talk. I mean, that is a very, very minimal list. I'm sure we could add thousands of phrases and words that we tell ourselves that are not effective and not helpful in the way that we feel. So number 3, this is the first key to all this, is you must label and identify the enemy. So see the negative thoughts as the enemy that's making you feel the way that you do. They will definitely drag you down. See them as the enemy and treat them that way. But your thoughts you're way more powerful than your thoughts, and you have the ability to change this habit and make a difference in your life. But the key is recognizing them. So you may have tons of negative thoughts, and up to this point, you may have not been quite aware of those. Sorry, I got my my phone ringing. Let me turn that off. But just looking at your thoughts and being able to adjust and seeing them as the enemy and identifying those is going to be the first key to all those things. So number 4 is you must replace your negative thoughts with empowering thoughts. So I call them better but believable thoughts. So they're thoughts that make you feel comforted, soothed, safe, relaxed, energized, special, loved, capable, talented, attractive, accepted, smart, in control, empowering, strong, confident, and proud. So these are thoughts that you're going to replace them with. But there's a big key in this better but believable thoughts. So let's say you're thinking of getting a new job. And so you apply for some jobs and you get a call from somebody that they want you to come in for a job interview. So at first you're a little excited. Then you start to think, well, I'm not so sure I'm qualified for this. And pretty soon you're thinking, like, they're not really going to like me. I'll probably just embarrass myself. And so you decide, maybe I shouldn't go to this job interview because your negative thoughts have brought you down. So 30 years ago, if you would have said, hey, maybe I'll go talk to somebody, and you sign up to meet with a counselor or talk with a counselor, 30 years ago, it was all about positive thinking. And that counselor would have said something to you along the lines of, like, they loved your resume, they called you, this job is yours for the taking. It's like sitting on the table. Now think positive and go get it. And that's better than the negative thinking. It's a better thought. But the issue is it may not be believable, because maybe there's a lot of qualified candidates. Maybe you even know the boss's son is one of the ones being interviewed. So maybe if you try and tell yourself, like, hey, this is going to happen, I'm there, I'm going to go get it, but it's not really believable, it's not going to have any psychological difference, which is why I like to talk about better but believable thoughts. So going back to that same situation, so you call me today and say, hey, I got this job interview coming up. I'm thinking of, like, not going because I don't want to waste their time. I don't want to waste my time. And, what should I do? So we're going to create a better but believable thought. So a better but believable thought might be something along the lines of, you know, they liked your resume enough to call you. The worst thing that could possibly happen is you don't get the job, but you gain some interview experience and you'll be more prepared for the next time. So hopefully you see in that thought, it's a better thought, right? It's not quite as good as, hey, the job's there, it's all yours, go get it. But you don't believe that one. But you can also see the thought I just gave you is also believable. And it'd be hard to like argue against that. So you can also see in the book, you know, let's say you have anxiety about a parent dying. You know, you can't say that positive thinking, oh, they're never going to die. Well, you know, God has created us not here for earth, but for eternity. And, you know, someday all of us will pass on into eternity. But, you know, again, you know, the positive thinking was all about, you know, don't worry about it. You know, mom and dad's going to be fine. They're not going to die, which is a better thought, but it's not believable. So the better but believable thought is something along the lines of, right now, my parents are healthy and I'm going to enjoy these moments that I have with them. So again, not the best thought in the world, but it's better than what was presented, and it's also believable. So the perfect situation, you know, I used to work with kids as a mobile therapist, and we'd go to their school, community events, those sort of things. And I had a little boy, Matthew, and he had to get a vaccination. He was around 5 years old, and he was super anxious about this, and he had anxiety to begin with. So the family asked if I could come along. So I went along, and I'm helping him like stay distracted and stay, you know, positive and those sort of things. And the doctor comes in and he's fine when, you know, he checks his eyes and his blood pressure and those sort of things. But then the nurse comes in the room, and here she comes with her little shot, starts to draw up the medicine. And that's when Matthew got really upset, started crying and getting upset about this. And the nurse looked over at Matthew and she says, Matthew, don't worry, this is only going to tickle. Now, you know, that was a positive thinking. That was a positive thought. But do you think Matthew, as he's watching this needle and the medicine going in, do you really think he believed that this was just going to tickle? So, you know, the nurse was doing the best she could and, you know, trying to make it more positive, but it only made Matthew more upset because he knew it wasn't going to tickle and he's still watching this needle. Now, Matthew and I knew each other pretty well by then, and he trusted me. So this was my better but believable thought for Matthew. I said, Matthew, here's what we're going to do. We're going to hold hands, we'll close our eyes, and we're going to count out loud to 10. And I promise you, by the time we get to 10, it's not going to hurt anymore. Now, Matthew, what he wanted to hear was, Matthew, get your shoes on, we're leaving, you don't have to get a shot. But since that wasn't possible, the next better but believable thought, and what I told him was better than what he was thinking. Now, I don't know exactly what I'm thinking. In the mind of a 5-year-old, he's probably thinking, hey, this shot's going to go in, and it's probably going to make my arm fall off. And if my arm doesn't fall off, it's going to hurt so bad that it's going to affect me for the next 50 years of my life, and I'm going to be in constant pain. All right, so my thought is way better than that. But because he trusted me, it was also believable. So he kind of calmed down a little bit. We closed our eyes, we held hands, we started to count. And it was like on 7, I think, or on 3, the nurse put the shot in. And I think we counted to like maybe 7. And Matthew opened his eyes. He said, you know what, Mike, you're right. It doesn't hurt anymore. Let's get our shoes on and go home. So just that better but believable thought totally changed like his outlook and the whole process that we were going through. So when I teach my psychology classes, you know, I have students write down their negative thoughts. And anyways, in the psychological class, we'll look at them and we'll talk about this because, you know, these are future counselors and they need to be teaching this to people. And so one of the girls that I had wrote down, I always say I'm fat, or I'm sorry, she said, I always say I'm ugly. That was hers, like one of her negative thoughts, that she always tells herself that she's ugly. So you know, one of the things that we did, and with these thoughts to create a better but believable thought, is kind of like put everything against the evidence. Let's look at, you know, what's reality versus, you know, what's not reality, and that'll help create a better but believable thought. Now, the students were trying to create their own, and so I said, oh, okay, you know, what's your better but believable thought? And she said, well, you know, I'm beautiful. And I said, that's a better thought. Do you really believe that? And she said, no, I don't believe that. Okay, so now we got to create a thought that's better like I'm beautiful, but it also has to be believable. All right. So first of all, it was kind of like, well, let's look at all the evidence. So why do you think that you're not beautiful, or why do you think that you're ugly? And then she made a comment that she said, you know, when I was 120 pounds, like I thought I was okay, like, you know, kind of attractive. But now that I'm not 120 pounds anymore, like I'm just not beautiful. And so I don't know what this student weighed. Obviously, I'm not going to make her tell the whole class, but if I had to guess, she's probably like 129. So it's not like she's 300 plus pounds or whatever, which doesn't really have anything to do with what we're talking about anyway. I mean, you could be 300 plus pounds and beautiful as well. But for her, in her mind, like, you know, she's probably put on 10 pounds and is feeling really bad about it. So it was like, okay, let me ask you this question then. So if you take everybody that's your height in the world, all the women, and lined them up in a single line and went down that line and looked at each and every woman in this world that's your height and your weight, would you say every single one of them is ugly? And, you know, she's like, no, you know, I definitely wouldn't think that. Like, a lot of them would be absolutely stunning. So first off, like, so this really has nothing to do with your weight, right? I mean, maybe you felt a little more attractive or whatnot, but definitely, like, being your weight doesn't automatically make you ugly. And so that was kind of like the first eye opener, right? Then we kind of went around the classroom, like, let's talk about the most beautiful people in the world. So they're given supermodels, you know, famous actors, actresses, whatnot. And so I would type in the name, and then in Google with everything on the screen, and type in the word ugly. Didn't matter who you are, didn't matter, you know, how stunning you were or whatever. There's somebody in the world that thinks you're ugly. Every single person that we put up there, somebody had a comment that they thought this person was disgusting or ugly or something. So there's really like no standard of what beautiful looks like. So there's nothing to obtain there. So again, we're working towards making this better but believable thought. All right. So it's not all about your weight. There's no way that every single person, no matter how you look, is going to think you're beautiful. And the last question I asked her was, you know, do you have like a best friend in the world that you can trust? And she said, yeah. And I think the friend's name was Missy. I said, okay, so has Missy, now we're all imperfect, you know, I'm sure she's made mistakes, but, you know, does Missy regularly lie to you? And she said, no, you know, as far as I know, she's always honest with me. And she's the one that, like, if I mess up, like, she's willing to tell me. I said, okay, what would Missy say if you went to her and said, you know what, I'm ugly? She said she would, like, she'd probably yell at me and say, you know what, you're crazy, like, you're beautiful. I said, okay, so you can acknowledge that Missy isn't going to lie to you and she thinks you're beautiful. And she said, yeah. So ultimately, this better but believable thought came down to basically this student saying to herself as step number one, even though I feel like I'm ugly, Missy believes I'm beautiful, and I have no reason to doubt that that's truly how she feels. Okay, so that thought is much better than saying I'm ugly. And you know, it's also believable. You know, hopefully eventually that student, you know, once that's really sinks in, can kind of take it up a level, so ultimately she can look in the mirror and say, I'm beautiful. And it's just going to battle against these negative thoughts and saying, you know what, you're not going to tear me down, you're not going to bring me down anymore. Like, I hate this thought, I hate this negative thought. I can't be super positive because psychologically it's not going to make a difference, but I'm going to find kind of that middle ground where I can be a better thought, but one that I can also believe. So you can see in there, there's some negative thoughts. So there's a sample. I've had this problem too long. I'm not normal. I'll never get better. So an example of a better but believable thought, I am normal. Again, we found 40% of Americans are dealing with this. So that right away puts you in the normal range. I'm just dealing with anxiety and I'm working on my recovery. So the next time that you start doubting, am I ever going to feel better? Am I normal? What in the world is going on? You know, being able to come back and using that positive thought, I am normal, I'm dealing with anxiety, and I'm working on my recovery. There's some other ones there. The weather's awful today. It's making me more anxious. So I'll let you kind of think about that one and come up. Again, you're putting it all up against the evidence. You know, what does bad weather allow you to do? You know, maybe you can practice some skills that you're learning. Maybe it's a snow day and you can spend more time with your family, whatever it may be. So think about the evidence and then come up with a thought that's better, but also believable. You got I'm just going to end up failing, so why even try? I don't feel well this morning. It's going to be a bad day. And then you have a couple blanks in there where I want you to write your own negative thoughts. So don't just make this kind of like an outside thing. You know, you know, if you're thinking I'm not a good mom, or, you know, I'm not a good husband, you know, whatever those negative thoughts that creep in, write it down, you know, create your evidence and create that better but believable thought. So this would be a great thing to go on the group Facebook page, Freedom from Anxiety Program, find us, and you know, if you're stuck, if you're struggling, and you're like, you know, how can I make a better but believable thought for this? You can put it on the Facebook page, get some other people that are dealing with this, going through this with you, to be able to help you in this area. I like the saying there, it's not who you are that holds you back, it's who you think that you're not. So again, you know, what you think about yourself is going to have like a profound impact. So I'll read some more. So sometimes when I go through this with clients, again, this is an area you really want to get down. So I'll just read down a few more. So if you want extra practice, but ultimately you're better off. I'm sure you have your own negative thoughts, and you can write those down and work with them. But here's some examples. So my kids never listen to me. I must not be a very good mom. You know, come up with a better but believable thought for that. My husband or wife doesn't pay much attention to me. He must be falling out of love. My boss never notices any of the good things I do. I must not be very valuable to the company. So here's the thing, like sometimes negative thoughts can have some value. So maybe your boss really doesn't value you. Maybe they don't see like how much that you're worth and how much you mean to your company or where you work. So it's not necessarily, so you may have like a really, really hard time, like, okay, how do I make a better thought when my boss has basically told me like, I don't like you. I don't really care for you to even be around here. So those thoughts, again, maybe you're putting all the evidence and you say, hey, you know, this is a reality. My boss doesn't like me. You know, it might maybe going back to, okay, you know, what is my next step? You know, what did I want to do when I first got out of high school and got that diploma? What were my dreams like? So your better but believable thought may be like, my boss is showing me signs that I'm not valuable to the company. So this creates a whole new world of opportunity for me to follow something that I would just love to do. So again, you know, just putting all the evidence there, finding the better but believable thoughts. All right, so some more. I need to get a new pair of shoes and can never find any that seem to fit me. Again, if you need to pause to write these down, feel free. But again, your own thoughts are way better than these. I don't know why I'm even going out tonight. Nobody cares to talk to me anyway. I will never really get anywhere in life. Number 7, why would anybody like me? I don't have much to offer. Number 8, I wish I was good as, then you can fill in the blank, you know, my neighbor, this coworker, this relative. Number 9, nothing gives me pleasure anymore, so why even bother? Number 10, nothing I do ever works. Number 11, the world would be better off without me, which I promise you, that is such a huge lie. I used to be a lead therapist in a self-harm and suicide unit, and that's where this thought came from, that I would hear over and over and over again. But just so you know, you're worth it. I'm sure I'll never make it through the entire day. Number 13, my life is a complete mess. And number 14, my anxiety will never go away. So again, play with these better but believable thoughts this week. Again, if you can grasp this concept, it will change your life. And under the homework there, number 1, start to break this negative habit. So your big thing this week is, the hardest part is identifying those negative thoughts. So, you know, you may have negative thoughts that that stick around for 3 hours before you like actually realize, man, I've been so negative about this for the last 3 hours. But the moment that you catch it and realize it, like that's when you create these better but believable thoughts. And the goal is, like, if it takes you 3 hours this week, hopefully next week it'll take you 2 hours, week after that 1 hour, and to where it gets to where you're automatically looking for and catching these negative thoughts. But I want you to begin each day with 10 positive thoughts. So you can't believe the world of difference it makes if you can think of 10 positive things before your feet hit the floor, instead of waking up saying, man, I don't feel that good today, and I don't really feel like going to work. And most people are waking up with 10 negative thoughts. But don't let your feet to the floor until you have 10 positive ones. And if you have to set your alarm 5 minutes earlier or 30 minutes earlier, however long it'll take you, you'll see a huge difference in your day by starting off on a positive note. Again, identify those negative thoughts. That's the hard part. Make the better but believable thoughts, and then keep using those skills of the deep breathing and the grounding. And then, some negative thoughts that you have, just to kind of start jotting them down to make you more aware and ready to change them into the better but believable. And then also, if you could get a picture of yourself from like ages 3 to 9, somewhere in that range, have it sitting in front of you for the beginning of the next session, that would be awesome. And there's something I would love to be able to do with you next session. So we'll see you then.